Hi, I'm Anita of My Chick and I podcast, and wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a fabulous day. And if you're seeing the show for the very first time and you like the show, please subscribe, like, and share, and hit that notification bell so when an episode comes out, you'll be the first to know. Well, I never ever thought that this day would come as soon as it has, literally. Dan Wootton has been suspended from GB News, and it is long overdue, if you ask me. And what is interesting about all of this is that it wasn't somebody on the outside that caused his demise, it was somebody on the inside, a fellow presenter like himself that he recently had on his show. And I will go into exactly how all of this unfolded, but I want to give people who are watching the show for the first time a little synopsis of who Dan Wootton is, literally. So, Byland Times has been reporting on Dan Wootton for quite a while, and no matter what they wrote about Dan Wootton, it seems like he was untouchable. And lo and behold, I look at what happened. And I sort of you know, thought that they were waiting for a reason to let Dan Wootton go, and they finally got it. And it wasn't, they weren't going to bow down to the reporting of Byland Times, but they were waiting for another opportunity, and they got it. But let me go back a little and digress a little about Dan Wootton. So Byland Times had reported that Dan Wootton had, two aliases that he was using on the internet. At times he was using it on Facebook, Craigslist, and so on. And what he would do is use those aliases to lure men to take pictures of themselves naked, according to Byland Times, for his pleasure. Now, at times, these requests left, the person's home, to take out these photos in these individuals' homes to Dan Wootton's home itself. So what he would do, case in point, he had a situation where he said he was doing, something with underwears, and he wanted an underwear model. And this person now left the comfort of their home and went to Dan Wootton's home, and underneath the guise that they were going to be an underwear model. And while they got to Dan Wootton's house, things got progressively worse, in the sense that instead of modeling the underwears which they thought that they were going to do, Dan Wootton allegedly asked them to take their underwear off so that he can photograph them in that way. So it appears that it wasn't anything about modeling underwears, it was everything about wanting to see these individuals' genitalia. That's how I see it, okay? So so that's what he did. There are other times where people came forward saying that they were propositioned by Dan Wootton. There was a masseuse, a massage therapist that said that he was, propositioned by Dan Wootton, and it's very sad that here you have somebody on television, a very powerful man who, a lot of people probably look up to, and here he is, as Byland reported, taking advantage of these individuals. They reported also at Dan Wootton's previous place of employment, which was the Sun. Dan Wootton would get people to videotape their partner and themselves having intercourse. So that was one of the things that was reported by Byline Times. And there was just a lot of things, and all of this was exposed. And there is even a drive or something like that that was found by Dan Wootton's former boyfriend, that just sort of like blew the lid of everything, when the individual who found the um, the drive with, you know in Dan Wootton's house, with two individuals engaged in, in a private way, or private relation, or having intercourse. And that's when this young man came on the internet and just exposed Dan Wootton for who he was. Dan Wootton claimed that he has not done anything illegal, and that has been the story. The story sort of died down because nobody wanted to report on the story. Nobody wanted to point a finger at Dan Wootton, and Dan Wootton had worked for a lot of powerful organizations, and at the time when these things were happening, that he worked for these enterprises or these organizations that were owned by Rupert Murdoch, okay, who's just stepped down from his publishing company. Yes, so that's the story about Dan Wootton. I hope I've said it right. It's been a while now. It hasn't been like on my mind per se. But the hope was that we would have seen Dan Wootton be, fired, or be something. Something would have come out of it, and it didn't happen. And it was just good to see that here's a man who's went after Meghan for the longest while, and who a lot of people believe was directly getting information from the palace and reporting on Meghan, because he was one of the only reporter that was able to break the news about how Harry and Meghan was about to leave the royal family. So he had a lot of inside information. I think that his partner or boyfriend or whoever it is had a friend that worked for William and Kate, and he was getting the information from them. And he's continued saying negative things about Meghan and Harry. And when the story broke about him, and he had so many skeletons in his closet, I thought at some point justice would be served, that Dan Wootton would be off the air, and at least Meghan and Harry would have some type of peace from Dan Wootton, and he would have been an example for all those others who are spewing negativity about them, and those who are coming up. So nothing came out of it. But anyways, his day of reckoning came on the 26th with a presenter of the network itself by the name of Laurence Fox. And he and Laurence Fox had a conversation on their show, or discussion on their show, and they were talking about a political reporter by the name of Ava Evans. And Ava Evans, who's a political reporter, there was some reporting that she did, and apparently Laurence Fox, who is a former actor, his agent had dropped him for comments he had made on race. So he's not new to controversy. That's what I'm trying to say. He's not new to controversy. So he's been around the block, a few times. So he and Dan Wootton had a conversation about Ava Evans, and in the conversation, he said some derogative things, which sort of brought me to liken him to Jeremy Clarkson, because it seems like these men in the United Kingdom, I don't know what it is about women and how they can go about saying things about women and getting away with it. You know, Jeremy Clarkson had said that he would like to see, in an article that he wrote for The Sun, to see Meghan paraded around the United Kingdom and people throwing feces at her. And not only is she parading around the United Kingdom, but she would be naked parading around the United Kingdom while people threw feces at her. How vile is that? And you know, so many complaints were made about that article, and Jeremy Clarkson, he hasn't been fired by ITV. He hasn't been fired by Amazon. He's been able to keep all his jobs that he has. So I don't know what it takes really in the United Kingdom for people to say enough is enough, and what makes these men say the things that they say. I don't know where, I don't know, I mean to say, most people are a product of their environment. Is that something that is learned at home? I don't know, I'm not in the United Kingdom, but if it's just keep happening like this and it's okay, and you know, if they're saying these things um, in public, I don't know. I can just only imagine what these people are saying in private. One can only imagine what they're saying in private. But anyways, this Laurence Fox guy, who has a history of just saying what he wants and you know, being derogative, he said about Eva Adams, he said to Dan Wootton,
that would like to climb into bed with that woman ever. Ever. He wasn't an incel. He wasn't a cucked little incel. That little woman has been fed, spoon-fed oppression day after day after day after day, starting with the lie of the gender wage gap. And she sat there, and I'm going like, if I met you in a bar and that was like sentence 3, chances of me just walking away are just huge. We need powerful, strong, amazing women who make great points for themselves. We don't need these sort of feminist 4.0. They're pathetic and embarrassing. Who'd want that?
Laurence, well, look, she.
Sorry,
right. I'm just going to provide a touch of balance from her, because she did actually respond to this earlier today, saying that she regretted her comments, but she didn't apologise. Yes, so there you go. And she's a very beautiful woman, Laurence. Very beautiful.
he referred to Eva Adams as a little woman, and he said that no self-respecting man would ever climb into bed with that woman. And you would have to be, he called the person an incel, you know, if you would go to bed with Eva Adams. That's what he said. Now, my thing here is, what does reporting the news have to do with whether you want to go in bed with a woman? And why call her a little woman? She's a person, she's a woman. You don't have to use, you know, descriptive words to call her name, or, you know, to refer to her as a woman. You don't have to use adjectives like little woman and so on to refer to her. So it's very derogative, and it's meant to belittle. Literally, that's what he's doing. Now, as he's making these derogative jokes and misogynistic jokes about, or you know, or they weren't even jokes, statements about Ava, Dan Wootton is laughing at his jokes. And I don't know, if it was me and somebody was speaking like this to me about an individual, and you know, belittling an individual like this, I would say, you know, I don't condone those types of, you know, ways of speaking about an individual. This is, at my network or at this network, this is not allowed, or we don't condone this type of rhetoric. That's what he should have said. Instead, he was laughing. And when you're laughing like this, it means you agree with the statement. Now, a lot of people, saw that and was appalled and offended by what they saw and heard. And, it went across social media like a wildfire, literally. And, people started complaining about it and, magnifying and amplifying what was said. So they came under fire, and they asked, Laurence Fox to apologize for what he said, and he refused. So, upon his refusal, GB News had to, suspend him. They suspended him, and, it was the right thing to do because they already had a lot of controversy at GB News. They've had a lot of complaints with Ofcom, that's a watchdog that monitors, news programs like on networks to make sure that they're reporting in a safe, fair, and ethical way. So there was a lot of complaints already about them, and this is just one that was going to be added. So they had to cower and let him go because look at how they didn't do anything about Dan Wootton. So it was starting to look like this is the type of network that GB News is. So they let him go, and when they let him go, Dan Wootton, he himself and the network, they came under fire because this information went on social media, and everybody started seeing it, and everybody had an opinion about it. And so Dan Wootton now decided that he was going to apologize, and which he did on social media. So when Laurence Fox saw the apology, he says, to be honest, he released some of the text messages that he had with the producers of the show, and one after the segment was broadcast. The conversation that he had with the producers, it appears like they knew exactly what he was going to say, and they didn't have a problem with it, and he was brought on. And so all of a sudden, now that they're sorry about what happened and the apologies that they're giving right now for Dan Wootton and for Fox and for the whole misogynistic segment, to me it's hypocritical, literally, because they knew exactly what was about to go down. Now the next thing is one of the messages that Laurence Fox released after the segment with Dan Wootton was literally Dan Wootton seemed like he was happy with what Laurence Fox said. This is what he said. He said he said the segment was so much fun, and then he signed off with XXX, hugs, literally. And one of the things that he said, can you imagine them freaking out in the gallery? That's what he said to Laurence. So this statement to me is a statement of a sociopath, because what he has done is light a match, and after he's lit the match, it's like, let us watch it burn. Literally, that's what he said. Let us watch it go up in flames, and we're gonna get a kick out of watching it go up in flames. And this is exactly what Dan Wootton is saying. Saying something like this is nothing more than sociopathic. That's how sociopaths behave. Sociopaths, set traps or do things to cause harm to others and watch them suffer and enjoy watching them suffer. So this is exactly what this situation is all about. And then GB News had the nerve to say that they were going to investigate the situation. I don't know what they were going to investigate when they orchestrated the segment, the interview, and they didn't have a problem with it. And not only that, too, it was plain. It wasn't. There's nothing to investigate. It's not something that happened behind the scenes. It was something that was on camera, that was on broadcast, that was on television. So you can see exactly what was said and how it was said. There's nothing to investigate. So they're trying to cover themselves. But as I said, that network is in a lot of trouble. The people in them who are working there describe it as a ship without a rudder, meaning that it has no direction, it has no leadership, and the people in them that worked there wanted to see Dan Wootton gone and wanted to see Fox out of there, Laurence Fox out of there, because they said that this was literally a disaster in the making. Eventually something was going to happen. That's how they described it. So yeah, the staff, they're saying there that chances that Dan Wootton is never going to come back, and they would like to see him really gone. I think a lot of people were upset about all the reportings that they heard from Byline Times, and they really didn't have a voice. They cannot speak out loud because they would lose their job. And based on what Byline Times has said in the past, it appears that Dan Wootton is a bully. He would probably, as he did at the Sun, as they reported, would make their lives at their job miserable. So they sort of didn't speak out because of potentially losing their job or potentially having to go to work and be in a negative environment. This is what was happening at Byline Times. Let me tell you something. There is something that is just like, I don't know if it's coming from these plants that I have here. By the way, this is a real plant that I have here. This is a plant. I sort of like try to put dirt in them, and I don't know where these things are, oh man, coming from. But this is real, 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 this is not, and this is not. So this is, sorry about that. Sorry about that. But anyways, as I was saying, it appears that a lot of people were unhappy with Dan Wootton and wanted him gone for the longest while. And not only that, there are 11 complaints already on the network. It seems that there's a lot of, they've been most likely being reported by different organizations or the public itself for violations made by GBN in their reporting or their conduct or whatever it is. And those violations were reported to Ofcom, and I already told you guys that Ofcom is a watchdog organization that is run by the government to make sure that these people, report in a safe and fair and ethical way. So there's 11 current active cases against them, and 3 of them were, and 3 upheld cases. So they found them in violation with 3 cases, and there are other ones that were filed against them. I know Byline Times filed some of them when Dan Wootton referred to them as a left-wing blog that was on a crusade to destroy him. So I know they reported that to Ofcom as well. So the story is still unfolding. Ava Evans, who is at the center of all of this, she said, based on what they said, she said she felt physically sick hearing about what they said, and she said it appears that it is a network issue. It is a presenter and producer problem, and I guess GB News has some house cleaning to do, and the story is still unfolding, and just have to wait and see. But I know, I always say Dan Wootton is never ever going to go down anywhere quiet. Look at how Laurence Fox outed him and GB News exposed them. So Dan Wootton, I can imagine, has a lot on people at GB News, and I know he's not going to go down just like that. I know he's going to go down kicking, wailing, screaming. He's going to do everything. He's going to throw the kitchen sink at them. And we're just going to watch all of this unfold. It's about time. I've taken up a lot of your time. Tomorrow I will have another show, and it will be on the Sussexes, because I don't want to take up too much of your time. It will be on the Sussexes and the charity organization Jinko that they're supporting in Nigeria, with all these beautiful girls that they're. It is beautiful. I live in New York, and in New York you hear all kinds of cars. Can't help it. Yes, this organization that they have partnered with, and the support that they're giving young girls over there, it's just a beautiful story. But I don't want to take up too much of your time. I will report on that tomorrow in my next show. I have some, if you want to hear a little bit of it, it's on, I did a little reporting on it on one of my shorts, so you can go there and you can look at the photos and the report that, which is just under a minute, that you can look at. Take care and bye. I hope I didn't stay long. I hope I didn't rant away. I just hope I really told the story earnestly. Okay, bye. Take care.